Hi, my dear Astro family. I hope you are well and you are ready to rock this lunar eclipse coming up on the 8th of November. It will be a very heavy one because we have got an 8-point D square going on in this chart. So we have got loads to uncover. And also, I'm going to be introducing a couple of new asteroids as well. One of them is Niobe, which is going to be conjuncting the moon. Mercury is Cazimi in this chart, but also we have got the trine to Ceres. Venus, which is the dispositor of this lunar eclipse, is going to be connecting to Pinocchio, which is also an asteroid. So we have got loads to uncover. Now, a quick announcement. You have got a few days left to kind of sign up for my abundance course, which is going to be 12 weeks. So you might want to check that out. We're going to be learning about your personal finances, blockages, how to make money. What does your chart tell you about money? This course is suitable for even beginners with a little bit of understanding, at least, of planets and houses, especially. And the rest of them we will be building up, and then we will take it to heights so that the advanced students will enjoy the course as well. So if you're interested, the link is going to be in the description box below. Let's get started. Lunar eclipse. Now, this lunar eclipse will be visible across North and Central America, especially in Ecuador, Colombia, and the western portion of Venezuela and Peru as well. Even Puerto Rico will be impacted also, a little bit Asia and Australia, New Zealand also, but mainly this is affecting America. Now, let's just talk about this full moon eclipse a little bit. I mean, what is full moon eclipse? Basically, when we have got three planetary energies in alignment. Imagine a straight line, and then basically the Earth is getting stuck between the sun and the moon. So what happens is that the shadow of the Earth actually covers up the moon. And what is the moon? It's about our heritage, about our securities and insecurities, but where we come from. Basically, it can also represent our homelands too. Now, sometimes the lunar eclipse becomes full, sometimes or total, we call it, or also partial, because the moon doesn't always get covered out fully. But this time around, this is going to be a total lunar eclipse, so the moon will be covered, kind of like fullish. The moon becomes a little bit more reddish color before it disappears. And whether we are talking about, when we talk about a total eclipse, it means that the nodes are very close to the moon, within about a certain degree. Now, we call anything to do with eclipses when it's about 18 degrees between the moon and one of the lunar nodes. It can be south node or north node. Doesn't matter. It just changes kind of like the type of the eclipse. When it gets a lot closer, then actually it becomes a total one. Now, let's just think about this for a second, because when you have got an eclipse, basically the sun and the moon are in total opposition. Now, one is representing the spirit, the other one is the soul. One is about your wants, and the other one is about your needs. So what happens here is that the spirit is shedding light onto the soul, and we become a little bit more reflective about where is our life heading and so forth, about the Scorpio and the Taurus themes. Now, Sun and Moon opposition always talks about culmination. Even in a natal chart, this would be talking about someone who wants to shine, wants to be seen, but they have got a tendency to kind of wanting to stay out of the limelight or to be stubborn about it because they do plenty of inner work all the time. And therefore, they are not always courageous to be on the stage like they meant to be. Now, as I said, the Earth is in the middle of this combination, which pretty much represents your physical body. And here, it always looks like with an eclipse that the body is winning somehow, something to do with your primary instincts, your survivor instincts, overall, just the instincts. So the biggest learning curve of a lunar eclipse is that our physical desire needs to be little bit taken down a notch, if that makes sense. And we need to be connecting with our soul as well as with our spirit. Sun and moon is also an aspect of dissatisfaction. Something is missing in our life, and we need to find the balance there. Now, this lunar eclipse is going to be happening on 16 degree of Taurus. So actually, that's going to be a Scorpio dwad. So the finances, our finances, anything to do with wealth and control and security, personal finances, collective finances, but also something to do with your talents, something to do with your comfort zone is going to get activated quite a lot. Taurus is something to do with the food industry and also the resources of the earth. So most likely these are going to be, again, and I know sometimes it might sound like I've been repeating myself because obviously we have got so much around this story and energy going on for a while, and I might be kind of telling you similar things, but these are actually getting activated here. Now, the three levels of the Taurus is the banker, the lover, or the people who work actually on the fields. And Taurus is a fixed earth. The fixed energy indicates that we want to build and we want to stabilize something. And the earth element is all about the material world. It tends to be quite practical. This is a feminine sign, which accepts and assimilates, but also it's about slowing down as well. This is somehow the middle of the spring, which is really talking about that the seeds are actually coming out of the ground and they need a little bit of a nurturing. So nurturing is going to be a huge topic here. It's about wanting to have pleasure. It's about protecting your own instincts. But if I don't have, let's say, the financial security for it, I cannot actually, enjoy life to the fullest. So what usually Taurus does is that it hoards, it keeps everything to themselves. However, with the lunar eclipse, there is a need to share. We have got a need to give as well as to receive something from others. Now, Taurus, because this lunar eclipse is actually conjuncting Uranus, which would really talk about, what, we need to break out of this mode. But Taurus says, hold on a minute, I don't want to change. It resists the change. It doesn't want any type of new adventure because I have to be cautious. Sometimes it does indicate with Uranus that we need to learn to take or to go on an adventurous road. We need to put, I don't know, our last penny on, something, maybe going to the lottery office and buying a lottery ticket because it might give us a little bit of an extra money here. Now, obviously, I'm not suggesting that lottery is going to be a major topic with this lunar eclipse. It's just an example to take a little bit of a risk sometimes. And we don't always need to have a practical way of thinking. Also, I kind of feel like this lunar eclipse is because a Taurian energy usually have to be answering the question of whether I need this in my life. Does it serve me or I need to get rid of it? And this is going to get highlighted here with this lunar eclipse. What am I trying to hold on to, which needs to be disposed, taken to the toilet, and then flushed down? Okay. And of course, our security is extremely important, but also holding on to our old life, old possessions, I don't know, old cars. Oh, I'm in love with this car. I want this. I'm never going to give up on that. It's actually important that, you know what? I've got 5 of those. Maybe I can get rid of 4 of them. Okay. So this would be one of the major factor to consider with the lunar eclipse in the sign of Taurus. Now, taking it a little bit more further, I think it could talk about on a collective level, something to do with the agriculture or the food service industries, or something what you put into your mouth, how you feed yourself. Taurus, for instance, rules the bees. Obviously, they live only for about 45 days, if I'm not mistaken, and they produce, one bee can produce approximately 2 tablespoons of honey within a short period of time. So what it really tells us with this Uranus is that, you know what, I'm a honey, I'm a bee, and my life is limited and I need to live that to the fullest. That would be the psychological message of this lunar eclipse in the sign of Taurus. Now, obviously, Taurus talks about building something. So it could talk about, for instance, that I'm going to build a food market. I'm going to build something tangible. Another thing which I think is going to be a huge topic coming up, and that could be talking about talking about pregnancy or rights to be pregnant, even fertility matters, miscarriage, and so forth. Why that is? Because the South Node is very close to the Sun, Mercury, and Venus. And the ruler, which is Mars, out of bound, being in the sign of Gemini. Now, this is something to do with the gender identification. I think it's going to be a huge topic getting highlighted with this lunar eclipse. Also, as I mentioned, this is an 8-pointed T-square, what is going on. Now, T-square is a pattern, which is including the Moon, Sun, Mercury, Venus, Saturn, Uranus, and the lunar nodes. So we have got the Scorpionic side, where we have got 3 of the personal planets, including the Sun. So this could really talk about the need to somehow leave our ego a little bit behind and examine our life from a collective point of view as well. But also, this could really talk about, oh, and by the way, this is a locomotive chart. Now, the locomotive is basically, we always have got a leading planet within the locomotive, which is going to be Mercury here, by the way. And imagine kind of like a puffing train, which is going ahead. The first planet in the clockwise direction has got the most crucial role because this is kind of like a train energy. And this is the one which is pulling the coach. Now, what's interesting is that Mercury is actually going through a purification process here. Why is that? Because it is in cazimi to the Sun. Now, it talks about and Mercury here becomes an evening star, which is very much talking about being more reflective about something. What's Mercury? It's about social media. It's about the way we communicate. It's in the sign of Scorpio. So what do we want to communicate about? We want to talk about intimacy, finances, but also something to do with our fears or something which is bothering us. And definitely it brings in something to do with our confidence level also. Of course, Mercury always wants to be heard, wants to be understood. But in the sign of Scorpio, it all has to happen on a deeper level, a deeper understanding of what is going on in our lives and what is going on in the world. Interesting, because the locomotive chart is always the empty space in front of the locomotive is always talking about the missing piece, the missing piece of truth. It's about what do we need for kind of like life fulfillment, in what ways we need to realize our vision. So typically people who have got locomotive chart shape is always about how to achieve the ultimate truth in our life, kind of like finding that empty piece. So of course, Scorpio is about the ultimate truth, and it's an investigative quality. So again, we might have been saying this loads of time, but some type of truth should be coming out in the next maybe 6 months or so around finances, banking, wealth, power, and all those type of things. Now, typically, the last planet tends to be suffering the most in this dynamic. Because obviously that is kind of like trying to push this energy forward. And the last planet here is Mars in the sign of Gemini. So who can be suffering? Those who speak up, those who are trying to be, in one way clever or witty, or they just want to be actually saying out loud what they have got to share with others. And easily, I can imagine with this Mars in the sign of Gemini that, I don't know, someone is going to get blocked out from social media, for instance, because they share their opinion. I think it's going to bring in something to do with Twitter. Surely, as far as I understood correctly, Twitter has been bought, and all of a sudden we have got a little bit of a subscription plan to it, or you have to pay a monthly fee or something like that. Now, of course, Mars in the sign of Gemini could really talk about these online scammers, and of course, it can be a solution for that. But secondly, as far as I read, some bigger companies and bigger people actually don't agree with this. Let's see where it goes. But I kind of feel like that's going to be one of the major topics which might be coming up with this. Astrologically speaking, that would make sense. Or maybe we'll see the real reason why this is actually happening currently. But also this Mercury wants to talk about mysticism, occult matters also. What you also see in this chart, that we have got so much fixed energy, especially fixed water, which is ice. So we should remember that the ice melts eventually, so things are going to go away. Now, as I said, this Mars is out of bound, and this is the ruler of the South Node. So it can actually indicate that this time around, you know what, it's better to stay quiet. We don't always need to talk about things. But Mars in Gemini could talk about war talks. It could talk about gender issues, loads of conversations on social media, most likely a little bit more violent, and so forth. And I also saw that we have got the midterm elections going on as well, right, in the US. And it's very interesting that this, it's going to get, US is going to get impacted by this, by this lunar eclipse quite significantly. So it's worth having a look at, what is going on. I mean, firstly, what we see is that the moon is sandwiched between the retrograde Uranus and the North Node. And this is opposing the Sun and the South Node, Mercury and Venus as well. So Venus, which pretty much is the dispositor of the moon, as well as the Sun's dispositor, which is Mars, which recently turned retrograde in the sign of Gemini, they are actually both applying a square to Jupiter and Neptune in Pisces. I mean, that's the Mars, because Venus is actually having a trine coming up to Jupiter. So Moon represents always the people in our life, and North Node is your destiny. So that Moon Uranus can actually indicate that we are not ready for these changes, what's ahead of us when it comes to these, elections and so forth. It could talk about quite a massive ride as well around these elections. Kind of like a rocky road, quite bumpy. It can actually shock people with the outcome and, all these type of things. And actually it can shock the financial markets too. Something could be going down which actually we don't necessarily realize. Now, because the Scorpio could really talk about the wealthy, kind of like the leaders. So in what ways we get manipulated by those, or even in a sense whether they do the right thing or the wrong thing. Also, we have got anyway, I'm going to talk about the Pluto and the Mars in conjunction as well, because that Mars has got quite a tight in conjunction going on to Pluto as well. But what I kind of feel like that because Neptune is in the picture here, and it's squaring that Scorpios, I mean, actually, it's yes, squaring that, sorry, trining that Scorpio element. You know, still it's a trine, but it is still talking about a confusion overall. So when, and also Neptune is the planet of lies and disappointment. So even with a trine, there is going to be some lies and secrets which we are told, and the question is whether we're going to believe that or not. Neptune is the planet of inflation. So most likely something to do with inflation is going to actually happen here. And also not to mention that Mercury, which is the leading planet of this locomotive, has got this ongoing mutual reception going on with Mars in the sign of Scorpio. So what I kind of really feel like it is that because Mars is a fiery planet, so and Mercury is extremely fast, so something is gonna go down very fast. But of course, it might not get revealed immediately because Mars is actually retrograde. But it's a fueling up energy when the mind is really reckless and reckless. Obviously, we have got so much water element going on in this chart, 6 planets actually in fixed signs. And we actually basically don't have any fire. Yeah, we do have got Chiron going on, but that's not really a planet, right? So that's a centaur. So the lack of fire really talks about lack of motivation, lack of enthusiasm, kind of like wanting to give up. And the loads of water element is about sinking into something, accepting and assimilating. So you might feel like, you know what, I cannot take it anymore. I just go with the flow and so forth. Now, this lunar eclipse is the Saros 6 South. Belongs to that family. Bernadette Brady made an extreme work about the Soros cycles. So what she actually said about it is that it's a being forceful and taking power over something type of eclipse. It's full on strength, really. So whether you think about the power, it has got 2 topics, right? One is about giving the power away, so being manipulated, being controlled, or taking the power back to yourself, so therefore you can lead your life. So definitely one of the questions with this eclipse, which one are you going to be doing here? Also, Taurus and Scorpio is really much about, as I said, give and take, how much we share with others and how much not. Now, Mercury, Mars mutual reception has got a tendency to say too much, and sometimes we have to keep things a little bit closer to our chest also. So I'm expecting some midterm election crisis situation, most likely. Now, the fact that the moon and Uranus are having a conjunction pretty much talks about, shocking events, but also in many cases, what happens is that it brings earthquakes. Recently, actually, we had 2 earthquakes going on in Turkey where I live, so, and also we have got some issues in Hawaii as far as I remember. But definitely it would be I think the stock market is going to crash. I've said this in a previous video, but this is an opportunity to buy. But what usually Moon and Uranus does, that people are going to start taking their money out, and then obviously it's crashing the system even more. By the way, this Moon and Uranus can talk about cyber attacks and security system crashing, and so forth. Now, we do have got this square to Saturn. So Saturn always wants to stabilize something. Imagine this. Wherever Saturn is going through your chart, it wants to be stabilizing that part. Obviously, it's in the sign of Aquarius, so it wants you to have some type of connections made with others. Most likely, connections which we need to build on. It doesn't always come with a little bit of a trust immediately. And then we have got the Uranian part where we must be futuristic and we must innovate something. So obviously, this lunar eclipse is shedding light onto the ongoing but waning Saturn and Uranus square, which has been going on since 2021 February. So it's worth having a look at what was going on sometimes between 2000 and February and May, for instance, in the financial market, as well as in your personal finances and your possessions, because the lunar eclipse might be telling you that you need to be letting go of something. And as I said, putting your ego aside is important with this because South Node is about depleting energy, letting go of something, and you have got 3 personal planets. So whether you like this video or not, it can actually say that you have to accept that someone has got an opinion or someone has got an insight into something. And what am I going to do with that information? How am I going to use for my own benefits? Do you trust the person or do you not trust? Yes, now we see one point which is actually helping this lunar eclipse, and that's the only kind of positive aspect here, which is a trine to Ceres. And Ceres is in the sign of Virgo. So Ceres is harvesting. It's about going to the shop and, I don't know, having 10 cans of sugar and all those type of things, just to be on the safe side. It's really about agriculture, food-related matters, but also how you nurture yourself. Virgo Ceres is meant to be looking at the details, because it's very easy to get lost in the details with too much water in a chart. The secret can be in the details. By the way, this could talk about some revolution in science, a eureka moment in regards to discoveries and all those type of things. Now, let's just have a look at this Venus a little bit closer, which is the dispositor of this lunar eclipse. Now, on one hand, surely this is a very challenged Venus. It's in a detrimental position, and it has been having an ongoing square, even though it's separating now, but having this ongoing square going on with Saturn. Now, what does that talk about? It does talk about that I'm afraid of aging. I'm afraid of I'm not going to have something to eat. I'm afraid of I have to be saying no to food or something I pretty much enjoy. So it's full on fears, this Venus. But what's very interesting to me is that Venus is actually conjunct in an asteroid called Pinocchio. Now, if you want to be looking at Pinocchio in your own chart, then the astrological number is 12927. By the way, this asteroid was discovered in 1999 on the 30th of September, and most likely you know this Disney figure. The more lies he was saying, the more his nose grow. So from an astrological perspective, this is going to talk about telling of lies, rumors. It could talk about actually the creation of legends, but also in what ways we are in denial, self-delusion, but also finding your own purpose in life, or what makes you more successful or distinguished in your life. Finding your own voice, reclaiming your own life, taking control of your own life, and possibly coming to life as well. So there is this rebirth around this Venus, quite a lot, But, from a synastry point of view, a prominent Pinocchio can actually indicate that someone is going to tell you lies and you're going to get disappointed from that. Now, I'm going to give you one example in regards to Pinocchio. Tina Turner, but Arnold Schwarzenegger also has got Pinocchio. Now, Tina Turner became successful with her partner, Ike Turner. But in many cases, they just walked out on each other. He became a little bit abusive. Okay. So kind of like Tina might have felt, in a sense, betrayed by him quite often. And also Arnold Schwarzenegger has got this combination, who is an actor, but he does politics as well, and he's a bodybuilder. He does all these type of action fields, really. And he got married into the Kennedy family. And he's Australian, by the way. And obviously, I'm not saying that he's a liar when it comes to politics, but he had this sudden career change, really, which I kind of find interesting, obviously. Anyway, I'm not going to talk about that. I don't actually know about his political behavior quite a lot, so that's why I don't necessarily have a opinion about him. So how prominent is Pinocchio in your chart? Do people tend to lie to you, and so forth? The another one, which I kind of find interesting here, and that's going to be the last one for today to share, Moon is actually in conjunction to Niobe. Which is also a asteroid, and its astrological number is number 71, if you want to be looking at that. Now, Niobe is a descendant of Zeus. She was the granddaughter of Zeus, and she was extremely proud of her own heritage and her children as well. And she had this idea that she belongs among the gods because of the number of children she has. She had 14 children, basically. And she kind of, on a festival, she claimed that her own fortune is bigger than the gods, and her children are a lot better than the children of the gods, and so forth. So the person, she made this kind of, it was Leto, by the way. She kind of believed that she was better than Leto, and Leto heard this insult, and he asked his children to take revenge, to kill one of Niobe's children, and they did. They got killed by deadly arrows, poisoned arrows. And then Niobe's husband killed himself as well because of grief. So Niobe decided to flee to the wild, and then she actually transformed into a huge rock. And even you would be able to see the rock or the sign of remorse on her face. So it really talks about pride in our accomplishments, but also something to do with heritage and fortune, and the loss of fortune as well, what it comes with it. So I kind of feel like that it happens on the financial axis. This is going to be talking about loss of money for loads of people. So I would be a little bit more careful with our financials. It can be talking about the fact that someone steals money from you, or you become the victim of scams and all this type of stuff. And at the same time, the second dispositor of the South Node, and that's telling what is going on in Scorpio, is Mars, which is actually having a very tight in conjunction still with Pluto. Now, it has been going on, but these are two power-hungry planets, and all are ready to go into war, and all are ready to kind of conquer the world. So this is still an ongoing theme, the power struggles and the power dynamics. What